And we're going to hit the screen share. I'm sure there'll be some others that will join us. Okay, wrong screen share. So stop share. Now we got it. Now we should have it. Okay, so I've got a blackboard and some things you'll probably notice you got pinged or you've got a bunch of things that went out today. So let's kind of go through a couple of things. One is I have created a week five folder. It's not going to be in our learning module, partially because we're using this as a crossover week. We're going to cover the exam and we're going to do a little bit more on projectile motion. And then next week, we're going to dive into forces. But I just really didn't want you to have to, I didn't want you to have to search through a lot of material to try and find that particular folder. So this week, you're still working on chapter 3 homework, and you're working on your labs and that kind of information. And then we do have a chapter, week 5, and that's where I'm going to post all of tonight's Zooms. Will go into week 5, except for the laboratory Zoom, which will go into the laboratory one. In the laboratory, I did a recording today for projectile motion, and I have provided you some tips for writing good laboratory memoranda. I am going to be grading the laboratories for the first lab and trying to get that to you, and the second lab, I just don't know that I'm going to have it in time for the acceleration due to gravity lab when it's due. But I will count it off on one lab report, one laboratory memo, but I am not going to be on the other laboratory memos. But the one that, like for projectile motion, you'll want to review my comments on the laboratory memos so that you have a good idea as to, where to make some changes. That being said, our laboratory, in this introduction, I redid this exact same lab in person today in my engineering physics 1 lab. It's the exact same lab that you guys are going to do. And so I went ahead and recorded some things that I was talking to them about. And what you have in here is a lot of information about the acceleration due to gravity lab. And if you go up under your calendar, that will help you out. And the calendar is it's going to help you out in everything but one thing that we're going to talk about tonight. But you'll have all your due dates, and your projectile motion lab is due on the 24th, but your laboratory for your acceleration due to gravity is due on the 18th. So that particular video that I have posted there, I really recommend that you go in and look at it, because we had I put in some good tips as to what kinds of things you need to include in your laboratory memo. So that's in that's in the projectile motion lab, and well, then that's got your acceleration due to gravity. We will talk a little bit more about the projectile motion lab here in just a little bit, but I wanted to show you that there's some extra information that's been put there. I also put for you all in the week 5, this is going to be our weekly survey. Don't forget to do the weekly survey, because that's how I keep attendance and I make sure that folks are there. I have posted, several of you wanted more help with vectors when I was reviewing the weekly surveys from last week. So I have given you an introduction to vectors video. I have also provided you 2 organic YouTube, or the Organic Chemistry Tutor YouTubes. One is on an introduction to vectors and one is on projectile motion. And so those two are good other ones that you can hear from somebody other than me about vectors and projectile motion. We're going to work 2 projectile motion problems tonight. So you will have those, and we'll talk about vectors while we're doing those projectile motion problems. So those are some things that are in there. And then I think the only last thing I wanted to mention before we started diving in to a couple of other pieces, is the pivot laboratories. Okay, during COVID, we were provided with some virtual laboratories that are really nice. And I have been continuing to use them to augment our laboratory work for the laboratory class. It's also very helpful, both in the in-person classes, our Zoom classes, to provide some things, partially because some laboratories become a frustration. Any of the laboratories where we're working in rotational motion becomes a frustration when we're trying to do that. So these are very helpful, and these are guided virtual labs. So you have a link here, and you probably received in your email or in your messages just before class a course key for the Pivot Labs. This video will help you get started with the Pivot Labs. But the first thing that you're going to have to do is log in with your course key. So what you'll want to do is you'll want to click onto this, and that will take you to our class. And you will have to confirm and register. And when you go through that, it will ask you for your course key. You should not have to pay separately for this. It was already billed to you. So you want to make sure that you use the course key that I sent you, or that extra key that I sent you in your messages. And you have your pivot key, and they are individual. But once you get in there, move this out of the way so I can actually see. Once you get in there, what you are going to see is you're going to see 10 different activities that are assigned. And you'll see the various due dates that are assigned. So I've got them due a week from Saturday. So we have another opportunity to talk about these. And the first 3 that you see are due that Saturday are looking at free fall motion, which we've already been doing. And I really think this is going to help you out. But when you do and you click on them, you will go, oh, that's the wrong one. That's not what I want. I want you to actually open, there we go. That you will have things like toolkits to open it up. You have rulers and timers, so you can actually collect data. You can generate graphs. So you will click on the little buttons and generate graphs, and you'll be able to graph things within the Pivot Laboratory themselves. And a lot of these are going to have questions that you need to answer. I am going to do this as if you go through and complete the lab. So you got to go through and you got to do it. That your grades for these interactives are, did you do them? Or to the percentage of which you did them. Because I want to use this as an augmented part of the laboratory. And they'll be up to 25 points. And they're a do them and get all the way through. You want to answer the questions. You want to go through all the parts to get full credit. But you'll get partial credit if you do part of the lab. So these are really about doing them and getting them in there, because I think these really help to evaluate the concepts that we have. And it'll go as part of your laboratory grade. So these will be included in the laboratory grade. And they are a do it and get them catch. There's only one caveat. I can't link these as assignments in Blackboard. So I will remind you that they are there. I will give you another reminder, but my first thing that I need you to do for points for next week is to get in and be able to access the Pivot Labs. And I will add just a quick question. Were you able to get into the Pivot Labs? And that's where we are for next week. So I do feel like these are very helpful, and they actually help demonstrate some concepts that sometimes we just really don't have as good a thing that we would like. So questions about what's due, where to look for things. One other tidbit, just so that you guys have it, is that I have posted some useful and fun reads. And because it was football weekend, I actually added some science to football and some other fun things that are in there. This one, if you have not seen it, it is a real world lesson in vector addition. And it's kind of freaky and scary. So I would recommend that you actually take some time to watch that particular vectors in the real world. It was truly something. It was actually kind of scary. So questions, anybody have anything they want to, because I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to stop recording real quick.